You know, the book of Isaiah is an absolute titan of religious literature. It's one of the longest, most quoted, and seriously influential prophetic books in both Jewish and Christian traditions. For centuries, its powerful words of judgment and comfort have been read as the vision of just one single towering figure. But what if the book itself is telling us a different, even more epic story? Let's dive in and take a closer look.
So, for a really long time, the thinking was pretty straightforward. This entire 66-chapter masterpiece was believed to be the work of one man, Isaiah, the son of Amoz. He was a real guy, a historical figure prophesying in Jerusalem during a super turbulent time of Assyrian aggression. The logic was simple, right? One prophet, one book.
But, what happens when you really start to dig into the text itself? Well, scholars started noticing little details, things that just didn't quite line up. It's almost like a detective story, where the clues to the book's true origin have been hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered.
All right, so let's play detective and follow the evidence. Now, this isn't about questioning the text's inspiration, not at all. It's really about understanding how it came to be in the first place. We're going to follow the trail left behind by its authors and editors, a trail that stretches across hundreds of years to see how God's message unfolded through them.
Okay, so there are three huge clues that just jump off the page. First, the historical setting. The later chapters start talking about the Babylonian exile, not as some far-off prediction, but like it's happening right now. Second, the prophet's name, Isaiah, is all over the first 39 chapters, and then poof, he's just gone. And third, the whole tone and style of the writing take a dramatic turn. So what on earth is going on here? Think about it like this. The first chunk of the book is filled with these stark warnings of judgment against Judah, and it's all focused on the immediate threat of the Assyrian Empire. But then, bam, you hit chapter 40, and it's like a switch just flips. The theme becomes all about comfort and hope. The language gets beautifully poetic, and the enemy isn't Assyria anymore. It's Babylon, whose empire didn't even rise until long after the original Isaiah was dead.
This timeline really helps it all click into place, doesn't it? The book isn't the product of just one lifetime. It's a whole prophetic tradition that spans centuries. It kicks off with the original Isaiah back in the 8th century, picks up with a new, anonymous voice during the exile 200 years later, and then gets completed by others after the people finally returned home.
So what do we do with all these clues? How do we put these pieces together? Well, the scholarly consensus, which has been the leading view for more than a century now, is that the book isn't the work of one Isaiah, but of at least three major prophetic voices, or maybe even collections of voices.
Scholars call these sections Proto, Deutero, and Trito Isaiah, which is really just a fancy way of saying first, second, and third Isaiah. Each one is speaking a timely message of God's judgment and faithfulness to a totally different generation that's facing its own unique crisis.
But wait, this raises a pretty big question, right? Why would later prophets just add their own words to an earlier prophet's work? Weren't they trying to take credit for themselves? To understand this, we have to kind of step into a different world, one with a completely different idea of what authorship even meant.
See, in the ancient Near East, scribal culture saw things completely differently. To add to a great work wasn't seen as forgery. It was an act of humility and honor. It was their way of saying the message of the great prophet Isaiah is so important we have to apply it to our own time, to the new challenges we're facing. It's all about continuing a living tradition, not plagiarizing a static, dusty text.
A lot of people believe this happened inside what you could call a prophetic school. Just imagine a community of Isaiah's disciples, and then their disciples after them, who were responsible for preserving his original words. So when new crises came up, like the devastating exile in Babylon, they prayerfully extended Isaiah's message of judgment and hope to speak to that new reality, guided by the very same Spirit.
So, does knowing about all these different layers and voices break the book apart? Does it ruin it? Not at all. Actually, I think it reveals a deeper, more profound kind of unity, the amazing story of God's faithfulness to his people across centuries of chaos and turmoil. And get this, we have incredible physical proof of this unity. This is the Great Isaiah Scroll, one of the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. It's over 2,000 years old, and it has all 66 chapters on one single continuous scroll. This is amazing. It proves that long before Jesus' time, people were reading this as one cohesive, unified work.
Its power and influence are just undeniable. The early church father, St. Jerome, was just blown away by Isaiah's clarity. And of course, in Christian tradition, the book's prophecies about a suffering servant and a coming Messiah are so vivid that it's often called the fifth gospel. So here's the big takeaway for us. Understanding the book's long journey doesn't diminish it one bit. It enriches it. It gives it so much more depth. We can now hear those stern warnings to 8th century Jerusalem in their proper context. We can feel the profound, desperate hope being offered to a people in exile. And we can hear the challenging calls for social justice for a community just trying to rebuild itself. Each voice speaks with so much more clarity and power.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. Knowing that this book is a conversation that's stretched across generations, a prophetic symphony composed over centuries, how does that change the way we hear its enduring message for our own lives, in our own time? It shows a message that was alive then and is just as alive for us now.